This virus, this horrific pandemic, is also a historic inflection point, an inflection point in the conflict between the United States, our Western way of life, and our role in the world, and China. I think that's becoming abundantly clear to most people who look at these things. We are now in a new era of U.S.-China competition. They're going to make all of our goods, get rich, send us cheap TVs, and they'll just buy a bunch of our debt and everything will be fine. That's going away. That's not going to be here anymore. And guess what's going to replace it? Much more open and much more aggressive competition in every arena, political, economic, cultural, you name it. There's going to be a battle for influence between the United States and China. Now it's going to be a little bit of time before all of that really ramps up, because right now we're all so focused on the virus. But notice how the Chinese are clearly the Chinese Communist Party. And by the way, I'm going to use those terms generally interchangeably. Just know I'm not talking about 1 billion people who are just trying to go about their lives like everybody else. I'm not. So when I say the Chinese are, I'm talking about the Chinese regime, the Chinese government. OK, so we can establish that. So, media matters. Go harass some other conservative. All right. I'm establishing that for the record. When I refer to China, I'm talking about the government. OK, good. Now that we've done that, the Chinese are causing a lot of problems right now for us. They're lying about this. Their propagandists are somewhat reminiscent of, if you recall, that they used to call him, that guy Baghdad Bob, who was minister of foreign affairs, who was saying that there was no America. This is back in was it the first, the second? No, it was the first Persian Gulf War. There was nothing happening here, and there were bombs going off in the background behind him on TV. But the Americans aren't going to do anything, and we'll beat them. And the Chinese propaganda right now, the efforts that we see online, seem laughable to you and to me. But meanwhile, the corporate media that you would think China is a massive human rights abuser, is more successful in suppressing freedom of the press than any other regime in the world, is more aggressive about it. I think there might be more technically, Turkey jails a lot of journalists per capita, but China, there is no freedom of the press in China. In fact, the concept from when I was in China a year ago talking to academics and business leaders there who are willing to speak to Americans pretty openly, the concept of individual freedom is very different there. It's not even clear that it exists in some ways. Certainly freedom of expression, no, that's not a thing that there's a huge movement toward. You don't hear about that. And keep in mind, this is a country that we have our understanding of Chinese intentions, our understanding of what their long game is in this country is minimal. Remember when after 9/11, people were running around saying, hold on a second, you mean the U.S. government has like a handful of highly cleared Arabic speakers? This is the best we can do when we're going to war with al-Qaeda? Yeah, that was the best that we had to ramp up and do. Our knowledge of China is it's poor, my friends. I'll tell you, it's not good, because it's a very hard target for collection. They operate an authoritarian regime. They're technologically very sophisticated. They don't have any, we've got lawyers and civil rights groups and all these things that at least somewhat keep the intelligence community and law enforcement authorities in check. And also we have this whole, Molon Labe, don't tread on me, Second Amendment. The Chinese have been able to lock down. They've got the Great Firewall of China. They lock down information. And yet journalists in this country seem to have so much less hostility toward the Chinese government than they do to America. Now, why is that? To the American government, right? It's because if you look at this, I really believe that they understand that a lot of their constituents, I shouldn't say constituents, wrong word, audience, a lot of the media's, although, depends, a lot of their audience is psychotically anti-Trump. We know that. So bashing the U.S. government as long as Trump is the president, that's good for business. But what's bad for business is having any sort of Chinese campaign against them. What's bad for business is when the Chinese government decides your reporters aren't allowed to be here. Remember, they expelled Wall Street Journal, New York Times, and I think Washington Post reporters a few weeks ago. Not a lot of Not a lot of talk about it, and it's because the conglomerates, the companies, the corporations that own these media outlets are very conflicted. You know, they want access to the Chinese market, right? If you're a company that you look at NBC Universal. I mean, if you're a news organization within one of these major corporations that has a lot of business interests in China, wants access to the Chinese market, you're in the pocket of the Chinese authorities in some way.
Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.